The First World War was exhausting for Italy. Having entered it, it expected to increase its territory and influence in the world, but when the war ends, Italy is too weakened by it to take everything it was entitled to. Instead, the state receives only economic difficulties and a real crisis, which of course affects ordinary citizens of Italy the most. They are terribly unhappy with all this, and because of this begin their protest activity, and the most successful in this matter are the left, socialists, communists, anarchists, and so on. It is these people who create workers' unions and workers' committees, thanks to which they successfully fight for the rights of workers and receive support from them throughout the country. Italian society is rapidly moving to the left, and this is how the so-called 2 red years begin in Italy. However, not everyone in this country agrees with this policy, and it is at this time that the main hero of our today's story, Benito Mussolini, appears on the political arena. A small disclaimer: the author of the video does not spread the ideas of fascism and condemns them. Benito Mussolini, a former socialist who became disillusioned with leftist views, now creates an organization called the Fasci Italiani di Combattimento, or Italian Fighting Bands, the main task of which is to oppose the workers' movement. They oppose, by the way, in various ways, for example, by publishing newspapers and other propaganda materials. But in fact, the most important thing is the creation of armed units for clashes with the leftists. Such units are called black shirts, and they are quite successful. For example, at the very beginning of their existence, they attack and burn the editorial office of the socialist newspaper Avanti, where, by the way, Mussolini himself once worked. However, despite some successes of the fascists, the leftists still turn out to be stronger, and their movement continues to gain momentum. They organize mass strikes throughout the country so that Italian entrepreneurs make concessions to them on issues of working conditions. But when employers refuse and decide to temporarily close factories and plants, workers take them by force, occupying them for their own needs. The government was horrified. Now the protesters own factories, and even if they are just factories, it would not be so scary. But some of them produce weapons and military equipment. The government is very afraid that all this will fall into the hands of radical communists and anarchists, and so a real revolution can begin, like in Russia. To avoid this, the Prime Minister puts pressure on entrepreneurs so that they make concessions and agree to the demands of the socialists. They have no choice but to agree to the terms. But now, the entrepreneurs are very disappointed in the current government, which is unable to protect their interests. It is at this moment that they actively begin to follow the activities of the Italian fighting bands and, seeing its successes, financially support the organization. Mussolini suddenly gets a mountain of money, which makes it easier for him to spread his ideology and arm his fighters. Veterans of the First World War, who have real combat experience, start actively joining the ranks of the black shirts. Now these are not just guys with clubs and pistols. Now these are real paramilitary units. They immediately start attacking workers' clubs, smashing and burning down the editorial offices of leftist newspapers, attacking trade union leaders, and all this on a national scale. The government turns a blind eye to all this. Yes, of course, riots are bad, but in the end, it's not a crime if you had fun. Of course, the left tried to fight back, but their weapons were much worse. But what is more important, they were very disunited. The communists hated the socialists hated the anarchists. In short, no one liked anyone, and they were unable to cooperate against a common enemy. Thus, 2 red years of Italy are replaced by 2 black ones. The fascists are rapidly getting out of control. In 1922, they begin to practice capturing entire cities. Black shirts entered settlements in large numbers to smash and destroy everything that was too left-wing. And believe me, if you were a socialist, you had better not be in the city at that moment. Quite quickly, the fascists became the dominant political force in the country. It was really very dangerous to be against them, and any opposition to them disappeared somewhere. Their strength and appetites grew, until one day Benito Mussolini decided to take power into his own hands. On October 27, 1922, about 20,000 supporters of fascism gathered in Milan, and their leader announced that they would be much better at governing Italy than the current government, so they demand that Benito Mussolini be appointed Prime Minister of the country. Otherwise, this entire army of fascists will take the capital. And they are already on their way. This is how the event known in history as the March on Rome begins. The government was horrified. It declared a state of emergency and brought troops to Rome. While the fascists were marching, they had the opportunity to prepare well and think everything over. But this was exactly what Mussolini wanted. Actually, the fascists could have not organized any march, but immediately gathered in the capital and started riots. But this whole march was actually something like a timer. As soon as we get there, chaos will begin, so you had better agree to our proposals as soon as possible. And in fact, all they want is a change of government, and while the Prime Minister is gathering troops, the King of Italy, Victor Emmanuel III, decides to agree to this ultimatum. He agreed because they do not want to overthrow the monarchy, and businessmen support them. Thus, on October 30th, the fascists enter Rome as victors. Their leader Benito Mussolini becomes the Prime Minister of Italy and can do whatever he wants. Now his power is constantly growing, and soon he becomes a full-fledged dictator, and Italy becomes the world's first fascist state. Further in history, they will have many adventures, but I will tell you about all this some other time. Subscribe so you don't miss out, and I also recommend watching these two videos.